So talking to stream, it seems like a lot of people want me to start making individual character build guides. There's a lot of variability that you can use, what companions you choose, what guns you choose, what artifacts you run, that sort of thing. And I think I have a good enough grasp on the game and a good enough like support network through my clan and a lot of you guys to start putting together very comprehensive guides on the current meta for all the characters. So if you find that interesting, make sure you subscribe because I'm going to be doing one for hopefully all the characters. And if you have any suggestions for what information that I should include on these, you can leave that down below as well. We're going to start off with Gwynn, probably the most popular character right now. Of course, the limited time banner. She does insanely high DPS, and she's very hard to kill. I am going to be talking about a tier 0 or a C0 Gwynn, because as soon as I pulled her, I am saving like all of my stuff going forward for the next limited time banners. But everything we talk about here is only going to be amplified as you start to get duplicates of her and you unlock those bonuses. The first thing that I want to talk about are her abilities. Of course, I always recommend you go into your character screens and read everything. I'm really going to talk about 4 main things. Her 3 main abilities and then her first relic trait. So we could talk about her 2 signatures first. Void Dance immediately deals damage to nearby targets and restores health, dealing additional damage when there are Void Spirits nearby. Void Spirits are like the little orbs you make on the ground by doing a bunch of damage. You also generate a bunch of those using your Relic Trait 1 and also your passive. So your passive, whenever you kill something, it makes a Void Spirit, or sometimes they call them a Void Soul. I think they use those interchangeably. They might be different things, I'm not really sure, but Void Spirit, we'll call them for this video. Relic Trait 1 also makes a lot of these. When you're using a sidearm, every 40% of your rounds in the magazine that hit a target will generate a Void Spirit. And then the perk that is just going crazy right now, when you shoot a shotgun, if 50% of your pellets from one shot hit a target, it will also generate a Void Spirit, which just skyrockets your DPS. It's absolutely crazy because when you use all 6 of your Void Spirits with Void Dance, you do an insane amount of damage. Your second signature, Soul Assault. This is kind of like a blink or a movement ability. Gwynn enters the void and gains damage resistance, and then it blinks towards a target location after a short delay, inflicting confined and dealing damage to nearby targets. And confined just means enemies can't move. And then, of course, your super Soul Harvest. You summon Verdict, your Scythe. You gain 6 Void Souls immediately. That's where I think they mean Void Spirits, but whatever. And enters your super state. While our super is active, Void Souls generated by energy severance will return to Gwynn. So, an energy severance is the thing where you kill things. So, pretty sure Void Souls or Void Spirits here. But go ahead and read everything else. But those are the main things that are going to affect what we're talking about in this video. Now, what artifacts should you use? Great question. I think there's a lot of discussion to be had here. These are the 4 current artifacts that I think I am set on using in general play, and I might switch some out for like the contest raid or something that we're doing very specifically that maybe requires me to alter my playstyle a little bit. So the 4 I'm currently using: Resolute Conjunction, Binging Planetismal, Courageous Planetismal, and Valiant Veil. Resolute Conjunction, take 21% less damage from sources within 15 meters. And of course, all of these like specific buff numbers, anything in gold, it's going to change based off of the enhancement level of your artifact, the rarity of your artifact, etc. So those will shift a little bit. But essentially, this makes you take less damage from enemies that are close to you. You have Binging Planetismal, dealing damage with signature abilities, restores health equal to 13.2% of damage dealt. You do more damage with your abilities, including your Void Spirits. You get more health back. That's pretty goated. Courageous Planetismal, casting any ability, increases damage dealt by plus 10.8% for 10 seconds. Keep in mind, this is a general damage bonus. This is not weapons. This is not abilities. This is everything. So that is very good for a character that is constantly spamming abilities. And then you have a Valiant Veil. Casting movement abilities grants 15% damage bonus for 5 seconds. Once again, a general damage bonus. Now, there are a couple alternatives here that people prefer. And actually, like this menu here, the Quick Equip menu, gives you some pretty good suggestions. So if you ever have any confusion about a starting point, this is a pretty good place to start. Now, the 2 that I've seen a lot of people in my clan and people in chat recommend are Abundant Planetismal for that first slot, instead of Resolute Conjunction, as well as Rampaging Planetismal in that 4th slot instead of Valiant Veil. Let me explain why I don't use those. So Abundant Planetismal is casting your signature ability, restores 1.5% of your health every second for 5 seconds, and it stacks 3 times. So we already have a healing source with Binging Planetismal, as well as one of our abilities. I believe it was Void Dance also heals you. We have a lot of healing going on. I prefer to have a balance of damage resistance and active healing, especially in a game like this where your teammates can also do, you know, if you have a 10 on your team, you're going to be being healed a lot, for instance. So I think having damage resistance, especially for a character that's so up and close and personal and just like constantly within this 15 meters of enemies, having this 21% damage reduction is going to be huge. So I do prefer that. And then the 4th one that I said people in the 4th slot prefer sometimes or argue for is Rampaging Planetismal. Dealing damage to targets within a 15-meter radius grants plus 2.4% signature ability damage, stacks 10 times for 10 seconds. So up to 24% more signature ability damage. And sure, that is a higher percent bonus. And once again, I did say you are going to be constantly in enemies' faces. So this is a really good, like, there's nothing wrong with using this artifact. My one caveat for this only buffs your abilities, whereas Radiant or Valiant Veil buffs everything. So a more universal buff for a lower percent total bonus versus a more specific buff at a higher percentage. You're just gonna have to make that choice. I think for Gwyn, a lot of your damage is also going to be coming from your weapons, so I like the general buff more, but that's just me. The companion here, if you go to overview, if you get her to a certain level, I'm sorry, I forget what level, 70 or something, you can now equip or if your character, your team level, I think it's like 70 or 65 or something, you can get a light linked companion. I prefer Ikora because she increases all of your void damage. Gwyn, of course, is a void character. All of her abilities and her super are void. And that leads us into the next thing. I prefer using 2 void weapons on her, which does kind of constrict what you're able to deal with in terms of enemy shields, but I think plays super, super well in things like the Raid, Gauntlet Blitz, that sort of thing. So the current discussion in the community, Concertos versus the Octant Riot Disperser. I have used both of these an absolute ton, and I want to show you why I prefer the Concertos. The Concertos are exotic sidearms. They have a very interesting perk. Cadenza. Final blows grant a stacking Cadenza buff, which increases your weapon's damage by 20%, and that can stack 4 times. The thing that is so goated about this is not this intrinsic trait. It is the Concertino perk or utility or trait. When Cadenza is active, swapping to your power weapon automatically fills its magazine and transfers 2 of those Cadenza stacks to it. So what that means, ladies and gentlemen, is I can come over here, I can make sure things are killable, go ahead, spawn some enemies, and then go ahead and reset my DPS here. You can see a normal shotgun shot, not buffed, does about 11.3 thousand damage, right? Well, if I go ahead, reset that, and then I build some Cadenza stacks here, I will swap to my shotgun, and if you watch the bottom left there, you'll see Cadenza strings ×2. That shot, now does about 15,000 damage, which is a pretty good increase, and it's especially good on a shotgun that you can just rapid fire. And so that means you can do some pretty crazy things. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you my preferred sort of damage rotation here. So I'm going to go ahead and get Cadenza ×4 real quick just for this demonstration. Keep in mind, I'm still learning this game. There's a lot of information. It's a brand new game. So everything here might not be as optimal as possible. So any feedback or suggestions you have down in the comment section, very appreciated. But this is how I have currently been approaching damage phases. I have Cadenza ×4. Remember, I have artifacts that make it so I do more damage after using my ability. That includes weapon damage. Also, as I'm hitting shotgun shots, I'm going to be generating Void Spirits. So when I get 6 of those, I'm going to use my Void Dance. That does a ton of damage and re-ups some of my increased weapon damage. Cadenza is also really cool because it only transfers 2 stacks to your power weapon. So that means I can transfer 2 stacks, do increased shotgun damage, and then when that time runs out, switch back to my sidearms and switch back to my shotgun, which will reload it and do more damage. So let me just kind of give you an example here. I'm going to teleport in, and then I'm just going to start doing some shotgun damage, and I'll try to narrate as I go along. So I'm going to teleport in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6 void spirits, so I'm going to use them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 void spirits, I'm going to use them. Back to sidearms, back to shotgun. It's reloaded. 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm out of shotgun ammo, so I'm going to blink for increased damage, and then I'm going to use my super. And that's like a pretty solid damage rotation there. I'll keep going for 30 seconds just so you can see what that maybe looks like. So in 30 seconds, I did like 1.6 million damage. That's pretty freaking good, okay? That's enough if you have a team of that going ham on Isaacus, not even including any of the other buffs you get from Tan and that sort of thing. You're going to be fine. Let me show you the alternative here. So if instead you were going to use the Octant's Riot Disperser, that means you have to use, not exotic sidearms. I prefer these, which I'm not even going to try to pronounce. The Del 6s feel absolutely abysmal. I hate them. They are slow fire rate. They feel bad. And I just don't enjoy using them. So I'm going to use these guys instead. I'm going to use the Octant Riot Disperser. This thing has a couple of perks, but essentially it's the Izanagi's Burden sniper rifle in shotgun form. So you can shoot it like a normal shotgun. Let me reload. If you hold down the reload button, you'll see the kind of hip fire reticle changes. So you can see how it's got all those additional things. Normal fire mode, super fire mode. I can walk up to something and it just does an insane amount of damage. One big shotgun burst, but it uses all of your ammo, right? So I'm going to go ahead, make sure everything's respawned. How I would do a damage rotation here is a lot more scuffed. I'm going to wait for those to disappear real quick. I'm still going to teleport in, get my gun bonus. I'm going to shoot one crazy blast here, but then it's just sort of a lot of like reloading. So what I'm actually going to do is immediately go into my super and then go from there. And same thing, we'll try to do like a 30-second example here. So teleport in, bam, void dance, super. Okay, and now I just have to reload. And that's sort of the damage rotation here. It's a lot more standing around. And you can see in 30 seconds, 1.4 million. The DPS is heavily front-loaded, though. I would not be surprised if the initial DPS is much higher. So if you're in an activity like Break-In, something like that, or the Menace Above, where there's just a couple of Shinkas and you just need to burst down a couple of enemies, and it's not like any sort of elongated damage phase, Octant Riot Disperser, a pretty good option. One thing I also didn't talk about with the Concertos, though, are the perks that you want on the shotgun, what shotgun you want to use. I use the Eternal Retribution. It's very fast rate of fire. It's just good. It has insane perks on it, and mine's not even that good. So I have target lock. Each hit landed with this weapon increases its damage dealt up to 62%. I have conjugation. It grants you increased damage when it matches the element of your character. Void shotgun, void character. So I'm getting 24.2% increased damage here as well. That being said, this is not even that good of a shotgun. You have perks like Karmic Reward. Hitting the same target 2 times in a row grants the rest of the magazine a 60% damage bonus. What the hell is that? You have Wound Counter. When all rounds in a single trigger pull hit the same target, the next shot grants 20% increased damage, stacks 3 times. So those perks are absolutely goated. If you can get some of those, this also gives you increased reload speed if you hit all pellets on the same character, on the same target. So there are some absolutely absurd rolls you can get on this shotgun that would also help this damage rotation. So it wasn't even min-max. But that's why I prefer Concerto, Eternal Retribution. I think the flow goes a lot better. You're generating Void Souls or Void Spirits if you're just clearing large amount of enemies and Shinkas and stuff. It's just such a good combo. It's got a good flow to it. It feels good. You're playing that little mini game of using your sidearms, using your shotgun back and forth, and your abilities. Whereas the Octant Riot Disperser is reload, boom, reload, boom. And it's like very one-dimensional. It's not as fun. And it really, for a long damage phase, as far as I can tell, unless there's just a rotation I'm not aware of, which could definitely be possible, just doesn't feel quite as good. So that is my Gwyn guide. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. Let me know what character you want to see next. I hope you have a fantastic day. I love your faces, and I'll see you very soon.